So here we go into Pretty Guardian Sailormoon number 6. And this book has only been out for a few weeks and already has been the source of a lot of controversy. So I'm going to explain a lot of the bigger points that everybody's been blogging about. But before we begin, I'd like to point out that just as with older books, when you get one of these, you're actually getting more than what you pay for. In this instance, if you buy this book, you're getting a book and 3/4. And that's saying something because original book number 8 was more than exceptionally thick. This is actually the biggest of the graphic novels in the original Sailor Moon set. So if you buy number 6, you are getting a book and a half, which is quite a bit thicker. And that's a really good value in this economy. So first, let's just look at a few of the aesthetic differences. Here, as you can see, we have the Japanese second edition of the printing of the book versus the American version. And just as with earlier titles, we have ourselves a little spoiler because Chibiusa is not going to have this costume for quite a while. And as you can see, her coloring is a little darker on the American edition of the books. Whereas the Japanese version, her skin is much more pale. Not exactly sure why, but I'm definitely not complaining because this is a beautiful book in person. The spines, yes, you already saw your first jump cut. Spines are really similar. This time they decided to keep the colors really close, except for when they put in the author's name. The back of the book is just slightly different. It's probably not even going to show up in the camera. This is the Japanese version. And this is the English version, and as you can see, it's a slight color change, but not by very much. And also, pay attention here, this is definitely a skin color change. It's not like the entire cover was printed on different paper or anything. This is definitely somebody going in and darkening the skin. Very interesting note there. And of course, we have our 13 and up warning, and it's very much needed in this book. This book is, well, not the most gruesome. You know, it's not like the Dark Moon arc, but it deals with a lot of content you definitely don't want your little brother and sister getting a hold of. As usual, the Japanese and the English editions give us a lot of full-color pages. This is the Japanese version of page 1, and as you can see, the colors are kind of pale. The English version is also a little bit pale, but you can still see Chibiusa's skin tone. And a few other details have been left in as well. Again, it seems like they're going all out with an HD print of each book, but that's an opinion. You can make up your own mind when you get the books. Now, in both editions, we open up with another spoiler. If you look closely, the outer Sailor Senshi and the inner Sailor Senshi are all wearing their super uniforms. They're not going to get that for a little while yet. And even Chibiusa is in Super Sailor Chibi-Moon form. And her mother is in her super attire as well. So the only one here not in super mode is Saturn. And her existence on this page is also a spoiler. We're not supposed to learn that she's Sailor Saturn for one more book yet. While the next 2 pages are more Sailor Moon R-oriented. Hence the yellow locket, the difference in the tiara. This would have been like a little bit better for book number 5, considering that Diana is in the picture. And then this is the one that got me. If you've noticed, a lot of the newer books have little pictures here and there that were done initially in 2003 and 2004 for the website, sort of when they were starting to think about redoing the series. Oops, spoiler there. This one, it looks like Chibiusa's hair is almost lavender. The English print has the pictures completely restored. All of the colors are back. So this is actually how you'd find them in the art book. You probably can't tell in the camera, but the skin is a little darker on all of the characters, and the details are a little clearer. Again, same art as the Japanese book. And interesting to note that Diana initially has blue eyes, which she picks up from her mother. She and her mother are supposed to have the same eyes, so whenever you see one with red or brown eyes, the other has them too. And here's something interesting. You know how I said blue hair or purple hair or lavender hair in the other one? Well, you can't really see it in the camera. It's a striking bluish lavender here. It's almost like I'm looking at Keen Endymion's hair. I also want to point out the first page for the actual manga is once again on shiny paper. This was something that had stopped for the last two books, and Kodansha started it again. I'm not sure why, but it's a nice little printing error, and if that's a printing error, then that's okay. If you have the original Tokyo Pop books, you're usually greeted with this little side panel that pretty much is made for readers that are just catching up to the series. You know, pretty much telling you who the heroes and villains are, who are these people, how are they related, that sort of thing. You don't see these in the Japanese reprint or in the United States reprint. I just wanted to point that out. Now, in the last review that I did, which was for the Sailor Moon group pin, I noted that somebody named Fumio Osano had talked at the conference about the new anime coming out. Well, he's also known as Osabu, or Osapi, and he was actually Naoko's editor during each printing of the manga. In the old books, he used to leave some of his notes in the back of the books. For whatever reason, they decided to omit this from the Japanese and English reprint of the manga, and it was just discovered... Oh, sorry for the spoiler, we won't get to you guys for a while yet. Anyway, it just came out at Comic-Con that Naoko is actually the one that had asked for the other back issue manga to be taken out, specifically the one with notes on how she did the series. Why she did this, I don't know. Maybe there's another book on the way. Who can say? But I just wanted to point that out. This is not a Kodansha issue. This is not a Kodansha problem. Please stop hating on them. As I've noted before, if you have the original Tokyo Pop manga, you're missing out on some of the newer art. This is how the memory of Keen Endymion and Neo Queen Serenity in Usagi's mind was drawn in the old book. And then over here, in the new books, there's a little more detail. You can see the rest of Neo Queen Serenity's outfit. So it's not like, hey, I'm walking around naked in front of my kid. No, they fixed that. Naoko went back and redrew this, so now it's more appropriate, you know. Oh, she's here. Put your clothes on. Yay, and that's more appropriate. Another note is that you're going to notice the translation this time is going to be even closer. There are only a few side panels here and there where the Tokyo Pop book is really different from the new print. And that's because of a little bit of history involving this book. Let me do another jump cut so I can explain. Okay, I should address something here. When Tokyo Pop first started translating the Sailor Moon manga, it was released once a month in a magazine called Mixzine, because at the time they were known as Mix, M-I-X-X. Well, during publication of Sailor Moon, they changed their name. They went from Mix, then they decided to split off into a separate group known as Chicks Comics, which only did shoujo manga, shoujo meaning girl manga, of course. And then by, I do believe, book number 5 or 6, they were officially Tokyo Pop. Now, when they were doing the first issues of the manga, keep in mind the DiC version of Sailor Moon was still on the air. The final episodes of Sailor Moon R were just hitting airwaves, and Sailor Moon S wouldn't be dubbed for another month or so. By the time these books came out, Sailor Moon S hadn't come to Cartoon Network yet. So what Tokyo Pop did was they took a few liberties. By the time that they realized Sailor Moon S was definitely going to television, and they got a hold of this part of the manga, what they did was they stopped translating the names. If you'll notice, let me show the page again, the first several characters have names more consistent with the DiC version of the anime. For example, Moru is Darien, also known as Darien Shields. His name Endymion was kept, even though the DiC anime had made him Prince Darien and King Darien. Tokyo Pop chose to make him Endymion. Melvin and Molly are renames of Umino and Naru, of course. Motoki was originally in the D cut Andrew, so for the manga they made him Andy, the arcade guy, and took out his last name of Furuhata. And then for characters that were just coming in, they kept Asanuma because he doesn't appear in the anime until Sailor Moon Stars. The other Sailor Senshi kept their Deke names, Amy, Ray, Lita, Mina, which is actually her daughter's name. Spoiler! But then when it came time for Sailor Pluto and the rest of them, they kept their original Japanese names because at the time, they didn't know Deke was not going to do the anime anymore. They had no idea Cloverway had it, so they had no idea what to name these people. Chibiusa is the last character to retain her Deke name, Rini. As for Usagi, they just decided to give her a literal translation of her name, which is Bunny. This way they could retain all of the rabbit and the moon jokes. So, if you have the Tokyo Pop books, the first names are on par with the original. Also, because they didn't know how much of Sailor Moon S was going to make it to airwaves due to the serious nature of the series, they decided to ease up on a lot of the slang and a lot of the sub-edits. So, when you get these books, they will be on par with these.